I've tried recording this video multiple times, but I keep on feeling like I said something that came out wrong, so I'm just gonna say the main point. I don't want to have kids. I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to. If you've seen my video about the real reason nobody's having kids from back in January, I mentioned at the very end that I personally didn't want to have kids because of the liabilities they bring about in terms of, well, if you've seen the video, you know what I'm talking about. Like, for example, you can't just let them go play at a park on their own now, as a great many parents have been arrested for that, which I think it's good that there are laws against child neglect in place, but there needs to be a more clear definition of that. And if that's how it's going to be, then I don't want to run the risk of getting arrested for that, so I just choose not to have kids. Don't even get me started on the story of the school. What's the most YouTube appropriate word to describe this? The perpetrator of violence at a school, his parents were sentenced to prison for bad parenting in Michigan. I wish I was making this up, but yeah, you could argue that they were liable to some extent if and because the kid was in their care. But I'm not sure prison is really an appropriate punishment for that. I mean, think about it. You could do everything right as far as you can tell, but if you just get that wrong and they go rogue and do something like that, again, I can't exactly specify what it is on YouTube, but those parents are in prison now because their son did something horrible. So yeah, really, I just don't want those liabilities. But to expand on my point from that video, I also don't want the responsibility. So as you know from my one of my videos, I got Airbender for my Avatar: The Last Airbender quiz, and air is the element of freedom. I like the freedom to not have to go places I don't want to do and to be able and I like the freedom to I don't want to say it's do whatever I want. I still have to pay taxes or file the taxes once a year and see if I owe anything or get some money back. I guess I just want the least amount of responsibility possible in life so that I'm free to go out for a hike if I feel inclined, assuming that it's not downpouring like it is today. Yeah, that could pretty much sum it up. The I don't want the responsibility because that comes with the liabilities as well, which is why third-party childcare is as expensive as it is. I think that the reason things cost services like that cost a lot is because they are taking on quite a bit of liability in addition to responsibilities. They're pretty hefty penalties if you They're pretty hefty penalties for child neglect, rightfully so, I'd like to add. But yeah, I don't personally think it's worth the risk. So I personally decided, yeah, I'm not going to have kids. You can say it's selfish. It is. I admit it. I'm not going to try retaliating by saying that it's selfish to who have kids for the sake of it, because I respect people who do raise kids. Like like two of my cousins, each of them has had a kid, and I'm very happy for them. But they make it work. Personally, even if I could make it work, I still just wouldn't want the responsibility. It has nothing to do with the cost because I know that it's not really that costly to just raise and take care of a kid, to do the bare minimum and then a little extra. Though something like the $990 McDonald's birthday party does kind of make it look a little more expensive than it really is. And I'm not saying you should never hold birthday parties or anything like that for your kids, but you don't have to spend $990 for what I hope would be renting out the entire restaurant, not just a closed off section of it or something like that, or a reserved table that's no different than way cheaper alternatives. And I'm not going to deny that parents do feel a deeper sense of satisfaction in their lives. But for the liabilities and the responsibilities that it takes, I don't know if I don't know if that sense of satisfaction is worth it. That's just me though. The reason I don't want to be labeled as child free is because, one, there are still children who exist in my life, like my younger cousins and the children of my older cousins. They exist in my life. I might not see them on a daily basis, but they are part of my life to an extent. And I'm not complaining about that. It just is the fact. And that's why I would reject the label of child free. I am simply a man who chooses not to have kids, who has chosen not to have kids of my own, but they still exist. But there are still children in my life, the ones I just mentioned. Which I have no issue with. I'm happy to send over Christmas and birthday presents for them in addition to the ones for or the cousins who are their parents. That is to say, one cousin each that is a parent of one of those children with the other parent. So yeah, there's that. And again, I'm never going to tell anyone not to have kids just because I don't and because I don't want the responsibility and such. I described exactly how to figure that out in my video about how to decide whether you want to have kids or not based on the Psychology with Dr. Anna video. Excuse me. I forgot to mention in that video that I didn't have to do that test. I personally came to the conclusion that I don't want to have kids based on out of control behavior I have observed in restaurants, movie theaters, and other public spaces like that over the years. Seeing all the things that the parents have to carry around. You see, I don't want to have to deal with that in any living space of mine. I prefer having things the way I want them and not having to worry about out of control behavior or anything like that. And I know that the appropriate response is to provide an outlet, like being able to play outside or something like that, and not just sticking a tablet in their face because, well, we've uh, all spent enough time on the internet to know what Gen Alpha is like. But yeah, me personally, I came to that conclusion just by observing that behavior at stores, restaurants, movie theaters, and malls over the years. And like I always say, the burden is on me to either accept that such things are going to happen because kids are kids. If I go to say the latest Pixar movie or Illumination movie, parents are going to bring their children. Children are inevitably going to act up in some way, shape, or form. I have the choice to either accept that it's going to happen or wait for that movie to come out on PVOD or streaming. I also have the choice to either track down somewhere that only admits people who are 21 plus, which I wouldn't want to do because alcohol is borderline mandatory there, not by force, but by peer pressure. And I don't want I told you in my video about why I don't want to be around people who are drinking, all about that, so I'm not going to repeat myself here. Again, the burden is on me to either figure out a solution or the burden is on me to figure out the solution. That's another reason I don't want to be labeled child free because a lot of them are advocating for adult only grocery stores and such. No, if you don't want to deal with disruptive children in the supermarket, if you don't want to have to see that kind of behavior, the burden is on you to either use online pickup or same day delivery. You have to either accept that it's going to happen, or you're just going to have to figure out the solution for yourself, because legally grocery stores can't just deny parents the entry to go food shopping. Now, some on the child free side of YouTube are going to argue that the parents should just use the online methods I just mentioned. Now, I would say that it's a good idea to use it because I think that their investment into the IT infrastructure is why prices have gone up, and you may as well get your money's worth because they're going to make those IT investments and they're going to raise the prices because of that no matter what. So you may as well take full advantage of it. But all that being said, the liabilities, the responsibilities are exactly why I personally have chosen not to have kids. I have done a form of my own of the very test that I proposed in a past video. I suppose I just proposed a new test of just going out in public, and if the way children are behaving, if you notice it and are bothered by it, maybe that's another sign that being a parent isn't for you. And as I always say, people who want to have kids should be able to do so, or at the very least, not be prevented from doing so, unless it's a situation where CPS gets involved and they have to take them away from their parents for legitimate reasons. And anyone who doesn't want to have kids, like me, or literally anyone else who doesn't want to have kids, just shouldn't be made to do that. They shouldn't be made to do that if they don't want to do it, because yes, I know that life isn't always all about doing whatever you want, but at a certain point with important tasks like that, you need a certain amount of willingness to do it, to have them do a good job. That reminds me of another YouTube video I watched about a guy who raged against fast food and said that the reason that some horror stories they mentioned that I'm not going to repeat verbatim here, the reason those happen is because the teenagers who are paid minimum wage don't really care because they don't really want to be there. His words, not mine. So yeah, that's why I think a certain degree of willingness is needed to do an effective job at something. It's like this one Simpsons episode where they reenacted the story of the Ten Commandments, and then something that the slave labor or built collapsed. Lisa was like, slave labor, you get what you pay for. So yeah, you let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on all this, whether you want to have kids or not, whether you think the responsibilities and liabilities are worth it for the life satisfaction. Whatever your reasoning and whatever your reasoning for either or, I wholeheartedly respect. You give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos, and I will see you soon.